cartoonish. It was a bright Monday morning when everything went wrong. The hallway at Pine Hill Elementary smelled like pencils and sanitizer, and everyone was buzzing about the new teacher coming in to replace Mr. Benson, who'd suddenly gone on leave. Nobody really knew why. Some said he got sick, others said he finally quit after Joey Mendez dumped glitter in his coffee. But either way, we were getting someone new. Me, Tyler Jenkins, along with my best friends Mason, Olivia, and Harper, were trying not to freak out about it. We'd just gotten used to Mr. Benson's quiet voice and boring worksheets, and now we were getting a complete stranger. The door to room 204 creaked open, just as the bell rang, and in she walked. A tall, stern-looking woman in a mustard-yellow sweater with a sharp nose and tight gray bun. She didn't smile, not even a tiny one. "My name is Mrs. Grumple," she said, like someone announcing a prison sentence, "and I don't tolerate nonsense." That's when we knew this wasn't going to be just a regular bad day. This was going to be a disaster. She didn't let anyone talk, whisper, or even look out the window. When Mason sneezed, she gave him a warning. A sneeze! Who gets in trouble for sneezing? Everything got weirder at recess. After making us write an essay titled "Why Silence is Golden," she led us to the playground but didn't say a single word about when we'd go back in. We thought it was some kind of break. Harper asked politely, "Mrs. Grumple, when do we go back?" And she just stared through her sunglasses and said, "You'll go back when I say so." Then she turned, walked back into the building, and locked the door behind her. We all stood there, mouths hanging open. Did that really just happen? We tried the handle, locked, knocked, nothing. We even tapped on the windows, where room 204 sat in the corner, but all we saw was her silhouette at the desk, calmly sipping tea and reading a giant book. "Oh, I think we just got locked out of our own classroom," Olivia whispered. "By our own teacher. At first we thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she would come back in a minute, so we waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then Mason yelled, 'This is like Home Alone, but worse because we're not even in our home.' We were still stuck outside, in the sun, backpacks lying in a sad pile by the slide, kids scattered across the wood chips, trying to figure out what to do. Some of the younger grades were out playing, and didn't even notice us. The yard supervisor thought we were just having extra time, but no, we were trapped. No water, no shade. Just one wild squirrel that kept staring at us like it knew something we didn't. We started to get creative. Olivia found a stick and tried to write an SOS in the dirt. Mason climbed halfway up the jungle gym and started shouting, 'Help! We've been abandoned,' until the lunch lady came out and told him to knock it off. Harper tried using her smartwatch to message the school office, but it had no signal. I even pretended to faint in the hopes someone would notice, but I just got a mouthful of bark chips and a stomachache. Time dragged, the sun moved higher, and then we heard it click. The door opened. We spun around in hope, but nope, it was just the janitor, Mr. Denny, coming out to fix a broken bench. We ran up to him like a stampede. "Mr. Denny! Mr. Denny! We're locked out. Our teacher locked us out." He looked confused and mumbled something about checking inside. He walked in, disappeared down the hall, and we were left waiting again. Olivia said, "I feel like we're living in a weird reality show." And Mason added, "Except the prize is just going back to math class." Finally, after what felt like 1,000 years, the door creaked open again. Mrs. Grumple stood there, arms folded. "I hope you've all learned a lesson," she said. "If you don't appreciate the privilege of being in a classroom, perhaps you should spend more time outside of one." And just like that, she turned and marched back inside, leaving the door barely open. We exchanged glances, unsure if it was a trap, but we followed. Slowly, quietly, confused, angry, maybe a little scared. When we sat down at our desks, we noticed she had written "quiet reflection time" on the whiteboard in big red letters. None of us spoke. No one dared. She handed out journals and made us write what we had learned from our time outside. Harper wrote sunburn. Olivia wrote rebellion. Mason drew a stick figure breaking a window. I wrote, Mrs. Grumple is not like any teacher we've ever had. And that honestly was just the beginning. The next day, we all showed up to school with a weird mix of curiosity, fear, and way too much sunscreen. Mason wore a floppy hat like he was about to go hiking in the desert. Olivia brought 2 water bottles, and Harper carried one of those fold-out hand fans shaped like a panda. I brought a poncho just in case she decided to lock us out in the rain this time. Everyone kept whispering about Mrs. Grumple like she was some kind of ancient witch. She once turned a kid into a potted plant. Mason whispered during the morning bell, and Harper replied, No, she just teaches like a potted plant. But when she walked into the room, all jokes stopped. Her mustard sweater was replaced with a navy blue jacket buttoned all the way to her chin, and she had a stack of thick black folders. She didn't say good morning, didn't ask about our weekends, didn't even tell us what we were doing. She handed out papers like she was dealing cards and announced pop quiz. No talking, no groaning, no mercy. Some kids laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The quiz was 5 pages long, filled with questions like define silent obedience, list 5 reasons why discipline is essential, and explain why complaining is useless. One question just said, prove you deserve to be inside. I stared at that one for a full minute. What kind of teacher gives philosophical punishment essays to 5th graders? When the bell rang for recess, she didn't even look up. Line up, silently. We obeyed like scared ducks following a crocodile. But this time, as we reached the edge of the playground, she pulled something out of her bag, a giant metal triangle, like the kind you'd see in an old Western movie, and rang it ding 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 of her head. When this rings, she said sharply, you return. If you are late by even 1 minute, the door stays locked. And remember, my clock runs faster than yours. Then she vanished again into the school. Just like that. No adult supervision. No warning. Just a ringing triangle, and her mysterious fast clock. Of course, that set off a full-blown panic. Nobody knew when she'd ring the triangle, and nobody wanted to risk missing it. Some kids sat frozen on the bench, eyes on the door like it might grow legs and walk away. Olivia set a timer on her watch. Mason made 5 escape plans using the soccer cones, and Harper began building a sun clock using twigs and the shadow of the slide. I was the only one who actually wanted to play during recess. But how could you have fun when a single late second meant banishment? We were scared kids living in a world of mystery triangles and invisible countdowns. 10 minutes in, Mason said, this is what it's like to live under a dictatorship, and then paused and added, at least in dictatorship there's snacks. The worst part, the triangle didn't ring until after recess was already over. She waited until every single grade was back inside and the playground was empty. Then she rang it once, loudly, and opened the door. You're late, she snapped. As we walked in, recess ends when I say it ends. Sit down. We didn't even argue. We just slid into our seats like sad balloons. She made us do push-ups, real push-ups, to remind you of the strength you must build to be worthy students, she said, while watching from a chair and sipping cucumber water. Mason fell on his face by number 6 and muttered, my arms were made for gaming, not this. The rest of the day was worse. She gave us vocabulary words like obedience, discipline, etiquette, and consequences. Then she assigned a group project called The Importance of Being Controlled. Harper tried to ask if we could choose our groups. Mrs. Grumple said, no, I assign, you serve. It was like living in a homework army. And she always said creepy things like, freedom is for the well-behaved, or noise is the enemy of learning. Olivia said she sounded like a talking poster from a spooky private school. Mason started secretly writing down her quotes in a notebook titled Grumpleisms. By the end of the week, he had 27. But Friday was when it all blew up. It was field day. Normally that meant fun stuff. Relay races, tug of war, popsicles, music over the loudspeakers. Every class got to be outside, running around and screaming like wild hyenas. But not ours. Nope. We showed up in gym shorts and sneakers only to find a note on the board. There will be no participation in field day. We will observe from a distance to reflect on our behavior. That's right. She made us watch the other kids have fun from behind the fence like sad little prisoners. They didn't write essays about the meaning of authority. She told us coldly, and look how free they are. Take notes. We were given clipboards. Clipboards. Instead of racing with pool noodles, we were writing observational reports about tug-of-war strategies. Mason pretended to faint again. Olivia cried quietly into her elbow. Harper just glared so hard I thought her eyeballs would catch fire. I asked, Mrs. Grumple, are we going to ever be normal again? She looked at me like I'd asked if penguins could fly. Normal, she said slowly, is a lie that children tell themselves to feel safe. And then she rang the triangle again, for no reason. Ding, ding, ding. It echoed in our brains like doom. That afternoon, as everyone else got ice pops, we got sent inside early. She turned off the lights and made us meditate. Breathe in, she said in her deep, serious voice, and imagine your inner chaos being sealed away forever. Mason whispered, I don't want my chaos sealed. Harper whispered back, too late. She's sealing it with triangles. After meditation, she handed out another quiz. This one was titled, Who Am I Without Freedom? Nobody even tried. We just stared at the questions and wondered if this was how kids in old stories felt. Like they were being taught by dragons or enchanted goats. Olivia wrote one sentence. I am a student who wants to play. Harper wrote, I am a kid. That should be enough. Mason drew a picture of Mrs. Grumple in a wrestling match with a triangle. I wrote, I miss Mr. Benson and his boring worksheets. That night we all messaged each other. Olivia wanted to tell her mom. Harper said we should form a rebellion. Mason wanted to start a petition to bring back glitter in the coffee machine. I wasn't sure what we could do. But I knew one thing for certain. Something had to change. We couldn't go on like this. We needed a plan. We needed a revenge. Or at least, justice. Real, 5th grade style justice. Something creative. Something bold. Something that might get us locked out again but would make us legends forever. And just like that, the 4 of us met at sunrise Saturday morning at the community library to make a secret plan. A plan that would go down in Pine Hill Elementary history. A plan that involved squirrels, ketchup packets, and possibly a dramatic reading of the Declaration of Independence over the school intercom. But we had no idea what we were really walking into. It all began early Monday morning with Mason smuggling in 2 ketchup packets from the cafeteria, Olivia hiding a Bluetooth speaker in her hoodie pocket, Harper clutching a folder labeled The Plan, and me, Tyler, walking in with a stack of folded paper we were calling the Student Bill of Rights. We weren't exactly rebels, but after a full week of triangle bells, outdoor isolation, philosophical punishments, and being treated like junior soldiers, something inside all of us had snapped. This wasn't just about fun anymore. This was about fairness. It was about 5th graders being allowed to exist without being constantly shushed and punished for blinking too loudly. The plan was complicated, messy, and had exactly a 34% chance of working according to Harper's math. But we were determined. When the morning bell rang and Mrs. Grumple swept into the classroom like a cold wind, wearing her usual scowl and dark-rimmed glasses, we nodded silently to each other. Step 1. Operation Triangle. It started with Harper's diversion. She raised her hand and asked, very politely, Mrs. Grumple, what does the triangle symbolize in your methods? Mrs. Grumple froze. She liked to talk about her methods. That was her weakness, her need to explain the triangle. She began slowly. Represents structure. It is a strong shape, unbreakable, unyielding. Each point is a principle, discipline, control, and silence. while she launched into an entire speech about the history of triangle-shaped classroom control. Mason slipped quietly toward the back cabinet, where the metal triangle was hanging. With ninja-level skill, he replaced it with a plastic toy triangle he'd brought from home, the kind you get in baby music sets. The real one went into his backpack, wrapped in a sock. Meanwhile, Olivia placed the Bluetooth speaker in the pencil bin near the whiteboard and clicked the switch on her watch to arm it. That was step 2. Operation Voice Explosion. Step 3 was mine. While she had her back turned, writing structure equal sign peace in red marker on the whiteboard, I stood up, cleared my throat, and said loudly, "We, the students of room 204, have written a declaration." The class gasped. Mrs. Grumple spun around. Her marker squeaked to a halt. "You what?" she hissed. My legs were shaking, but I held up the paper and began to read. "We, the kids of Pine Hill Elementary, believe that being locked outside, denied recess, assigned punishment essays, and silenced for sneezing is against the basic rights of childhood." Murmurs spread. Harper jumped in, reading the next paragraph. "We believe classrooms should be places of learning, laughter, and at least one chance to be silly without being assigned 20 push-ups." Olivia finished with the final line. "Therefore, we respectfully ask for the right to learn without fear. And we want our triangle-free field day. Also, popsicles." Mrs. Grumple's jaw opened and shut like a confused robot. This is, she sputtered. That's when Mason triggered step 4. He hit play on Olivia's watch. Suddenly, from the Bluetooth speaker came the voice of Mr. Benson. Yes, we'd gotten an old voice clip from last year's class video where Mr. Benson said, "Good morning, room 204. Today we'll be learning how to relax." Then the speaker began blasting cheesy jazz music. Some kids clapped, some laughed. One kid stood up and danced. Mrs. Grumple looked like her triangle had just exploded. She stormed over to the speaker and yanked the cord, but Olivia had already popped out the batteries and hidden them in her sock. "This is an outrage," she shouted. This is mutiny." We stood our ground. Harper stepped forward. "We are not mutineers, we're just tired of triangle rules, of being afraid to blink, of writing essays about silence. We're not bad kids, we just want to be kids." Mrs. Grumple stared at us for a long time. Then, without a word, she walked out of the classroom. For 5 full minutes, the room was completely silent. No triangle, no yelling, no strange philosophical assignments, just us. And it felt amazing. Then the principal showed up. Principal Davis was one of those calm, slow-talking grown-ups with sweater vests and coffee breath. He looked around the room and asked, "Okay, what happened?" We explained everything. From the locked door incident to the field day boycott, the triangle speeches, the quiz called "Who Am I Without Freedom?" and how Mrs. Grumple had treated us more like a military squad than a classroom. "She made us meditate in the dark," Mason added, "with no music." Olivia said, "She said we don't deserve desks." Harper added, "She told me my questions were disruptive energy." I handed Principal Davis the Student Bill of Rights. He read it. He nodded. He said, "Well, this is a first." That afternoon, Mrs. Grumple returned with her purse in one hand and a stack of folders in the other. She didn't say a word. She just gathered her triangle, her discipline charts, and her cucumber water, and left forever. That's right, she quit. Later, someone said she went to teach at a boot camp in Montana. Others say she joined a silent retreat in the woods. Either way, we never saw her again. The next day, we had a substitute named Miss Kelly, who smiled, passed out popsicles, and said, "Let's go outside and draw something awesome." And we all just looked at each other, like we'd woken up in a magical dream. We didn't even know what to do with so much freedom. At first, we kept glancing over our shoulders, expecting to hear a triangle ring, but it never came. In the end, we didn't become rebels or troublemakers. We became something even better, a legend. Room 204 was known across the school as the class that overthrew the triangle. Younger grades whispered about us in the lunchroom. Even the janitor high-fived Mason and said, "Nice work, General Ketchup." We framed our Bill of Rights and hung it above the coat hooks. Harper turned her planning folder into a real club called KED, Kids for Instructional Democracy. Olivia made a playlist called Freedom Sounds full of music we never got to hear while meditating. Mason sold triangle-shaped stress balls with angry faces on them and made $30. And me? I just sat back and smiled. Because for once we'd stood up, we'd spoken out. We'd proved that even fifth graders could change something unfair, not with yelling or meanness, but with courage, creativity, and a little help from jazz music. And from that day on, whenever we heard a triangle ding in the distance, we didn't freeze in fear. We laughed, because we were no longer afraid of weird teachers or strange punishments. We were united, we were strong, we were kids with a voice.